How's it going,
Thank you for
Sophie?
joining us. Yeah, good. How are you?
Good, just another Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm not really sure what day it is.
Well, it's a perfect topic to talk about on this. I think it's Tuesday because I also don't really know. But yeah, I guess we want to do the recording today on self improvement. Like, what is self improvement? How do you go about improving yourself? I think that there is, in some cases, a bit of a misconception around like what actually is self improvement. People, if you generically thought about it, the first thing that would come to mind is like you're improving the way that you look, whereas actually there's so many other ways that you can improve yourself. So I guess if we start off by kicking off with what is self improvement, like what do we mean when we're talking about that? So
Yeah. Well, my interpretation of self-improvement is that it's just like continuous development of the self. But like you said, it's not just looks, it's everything from your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual well-being. And it's like that continuous process of and I don't like the word improvement, but like the continuous process of stepping into a newer, better version of yourself based off of everything you've been learning or you've been applying. That's what I
yeah,
would consider self improvement to be.
yeah, kind of about becoming the best version of yourself. It doesn't necessarily need to be. You don't need to be perfect. Like nobody's perfect. No one's ever gonna should ever strive for
Mhm.
perfection because it doesn't exist. And ultimately, getting to the best version of yourself is an ongoing journey. It's not. There's no real end destination. It's just about how you feel, and if you like the way that you're showing up to the world, I guess. So yeah, my interpretation as well would be very similar. It'd be, you're on a journey to continuously improve yourself. I don't think that there's like one route of self improvement. I think there's so many different types of self improvement. And I would say that
Yeah.
throughout your life, you go through different phases of focusing on different elements of yourself, right? Like, there's not always just going to be one route that you're taking, there's going to be lots of different paths that you take. Which kind of leads me to talking about like the different types of self improvement. So, the obvious ones, like I said, would be kind of like your physical appearance. So, a lot of people get to a certain age and they might decide that they want a boob job, for example. They want to get Botox, they want to get lip filler, they want to get like some kind of like cosmetic enhancements, which is totally fine, each to their own. So that would be like the most obvious one when we talk about self improvement.
It's funny when you talk about the way you're talking about self improvement with like the physical aspect, that's not the first thing that comes to my mind
That's
with
so
physical self
interesting.
improvement. Not at all.
That's
The first thing
interesting.
that comes to my mind is like, I want to feel better in my body, so I need to exercise or I need to eat better or I need to have like a better like sleep routine. I need to like quit smoking cigarettes. I need to stop drinking alcohol so much. Like that's the immediate self-improvement that I think of rather than like physical body
That's
alteration.
interesting. That's very interesting. Do you think that I wonder then if that's because we're from different places. I
I
wonder if
I
that's
wonder. I guess now like I have friends, most of my friends, we don't do we're not into plastic surgery, we're not into lip fillers and to each his own, like you said, if that's whatever you want to do. But
yeah,
um the community that I hang around with, like the people that I see on a regular basis, I don't see as much of it, but I do know through the grapevine that a lot of people my age now are getting lip fillers. They are like doing certain things and it just doesn't like that doesn't click with me. And for me, that doesn't I know this is going to sound really harsh. Everyone is allowed to choose what they want to do with their body, but to me, that's not self improvement. To me, that's changing something about yourself that you don't like, probably based off of false narratives, maybe because of like stuff you heard
yeah,
as a teenager or a kid. Like, I used to be made fun of for having a pointy nose, right? So, like, if that really stuck with me, then maybe I would get a nose job at some
surgery.
point,
Yeah,
right? Right, but that's
yeah,
based off of like other people's opinions of me. That's not like me improving myself for me, like accepting myself and being happy and content within my own body. I don't associate body modification with that. if that makes
Neither do
sense.
I. Can I just put out? Neither do I. But I, coming from the UK, if I was to talk about self improvement here,
Yeah.
no one would be thinking about like mental health stuff from in that perspective. They would, the first thing I guarantee you, if I went out onto the streets of London and started talking about self improvement, and I said, how do you want to improve yourself? They'd be like, well, I don't really like this about myself. I don't really like that kind of thing. So it would probably go down the route of, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and change my physical appearance. Like that would be the first thing that I know would come to mind in this environment. So it's quite interesting. I mean, I think we both are in a world where we do work on ourselves internally, right? So
Yeah.
um, maybe we just have a different perspective of it. But I know if I went out onto the streets in the UK, 100%, if I said about self improvement, everyone would be thinking I'm talking about appearance, like 100% without fail. And
Mm.
I think it comes down to like, if you go to like, if you when you're watching TV, like I don't know what it's like in the States, but here like there's so many like makeover shows, or there was anyway in like the
Oh yeah.
millennial generation, so many makeover shows, and like so many of it's like, oh, like we're gonna improve ourselves like by cutting our hair, doing our nails, doing this, like the level of um awareness that you can improve yourself, you need to improve yourself internally first. I don't think it's reached it here yet. um,
Well, so I'll say this. So the a really common, this is both in like life coaching and in like certain psychology-based practices. So like when it comes to like self-improvement, it comes in tiers. And actually the first entry level tier is that physical aspect. Like what can you change in terms of like how are you eating? How are you treating your body? Are you getting sleep? Are you showering regularly? Like, right, it comes from different avenues, right? If you're coming from a place that you're struggling and you're looking to get back to base level versus you're at base level and you're wanting to improve further, there's two different starting points. But the tiers typically go, you start with that physical self improvement first because that's just the easiest
yeah,
one to do on your own. And then from there, you go into mental, then you go into emotional, and then you go into spiritual. And
yeah,
typically that's the funnel of self-improvement that is easiest to follow, that like most coaches or certain types of therapists would start with, is it goes that physical, that mental, emotional. So I don't necessarily think self-improvement starts with mental and emotional stuff. I actually think it starts with physical things, but again, my mind just doesn't go towards like how do I alter my physical appearance. I guess like exercise, right? If you want to feel more fit and healthy in your body, like that is an body modification, that is alterations, but
yeah.
it's just not as like what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't want to say materialistic because that's not the wrong word. It's not as like superficial
Superficial, yeah,
as if you're getting the eyelashes or lip fillers and things like that, because that's stuff that you have to like, I mean, you do, even with exercise, you have to keep up and you have to maintain a diet, and not like you're dieting, but like
yeah,
a good nutritional rhythm along with how you treat your body to like stay feeling fit and healthy. But I think that's like different than injecting or putting something on into or on your body.
yeah. No, I agree. So I guess, yeah, I definitely would have said I'd started my own personal self improvement journey with physical fitness because
Yeah.
I I've been going to the gym since I was about 17 years old. And that wasn't necessarily because I wanted to lose weight or change my body or anything like that. It was because it made me feel good. And I recognized that quite early on. And then I also changed my eating habits. But I guess when, again, I don't know about in the States, but here, there's so many like fad diets, and it's
Yeah.
phasing out now, I'd say, but like over the past like 10 years, so many different fad diets. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to do the 5-2, oh, I'm going to do the keto, oh, I'm going to do this, that, blah, blah, blah. So then we've all been educated to have a bit of a warped perspective on like food, but we would include that in our like self improvement, like, oh, I want to get healthier kind of thing, and then we would start following this one diet that actually in reality isn't probably very good for us. But then there's this whole I think you're right. Like the layers of like the bits that you go through. For me, I definitely went on like health and fitness, and then went on mental health, and then probably on a spiritual. But then there's also like other things that you can improve about yourself as well, which is would be like career and business. Like if you are not happy in your career, or you don't feel fulfilled in your business, whatever it is, changing something about that circumstance is actually going to help you improve yourself as well. Your living
Hmm.
situations, your environment impacts absolutely everything that you do, in my opinion. So I think like if you're struggling with some kind of self mental health challenge, potentially like improving your living situation is also something that you can do to improve yourself. Relationships, improving your relationships is also intertwined in all of that. But yeah, I think I agree with you. It goes in tiers of like, where do you start? Most
Yeah.
people would probably, if you were feeling a bit funky, start with your physical appearance, health and fitness, or your career and business.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I was gonna say, and then I think it gets to more of that like outside things, not so much self things.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're the things that you can change, I guess, or like you think you can on the surface level. They're the things that you think you can change. People don't necessarily aren't necessarily educated yet that they can change their internal thought patterns and internal habits and behaviours, and that's something obviously that we're trying to do with Tina, is try and educate a little bit more on that from a mental health perspective. The things that you can change and improve yourself on, and go on this whole self development journey to improve your mental health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, what would you say for you? Because you mentioned you already kind of like touched a little bit on it. Outside the context of mental health, right? Like outside, like, oh, I need to improve my mental well-being kind of thing. Where would you say like self-improvement kind of like where did it start and what was like the touch points in the journey that then led you to working on your mental health?
Yeah. Um that's a really hard question, because like I don't think I was consciously doing it, but I
Hmm.
was subconsciously, like um I've always gone to the gym. I've been going to the gym since I was 17 years old. I think I was 21ish, 20 when I had a first personal trainer. So I wanted to educate myself on nutrition and how to use equipment in the gym. Um, Obviously, one, to improve my body, but also because I just liked going to the gym. I liked having that element of myself that I could control. And at that time in my life, I was very disciplined. If I think back now, I used to get up at 6:30 in the morning and go to the gym, and then go to work straight after the gym. I can't even get up at 7:30 these days, so I don't know how I managed that. And then I had like this set meal plan that the personal trainer put me on. So I think subconsciously that was me trying to improve an element of myself, because I knew it made me feel better physically and mentally. The other part of that is, in my 20s, I was very career oriented,
Yeah.
and particularly my early 20s, because I got quite far ahead in my career quite young because I didn't go to university. So I feel like I associated that with quite a lot of like self improvement. Oh, if I get this promotion, or if I go for this job, if I get this much money. I had all of those like
Yeah.
external factors feeding into my personal self improvement journey as well. Um, and then I think it wasn't. I started traveling quite young. I started traveling when I was 21 as well, and I feel like that in itself led to an improvement of self, because I was expanding my awareness of the world. I was expanding. Like before I went traveling, I wouldn't even eat anything more than like a sausage and chip kind of thing. Like I was such a basic eater, and then suddenly I've been expanded into like this world of different food cultures, for example, if different cultures understanding like the world. So I'd say like probably most of my self improvement journeys have focused from travel, like have expanded from travel, and like I've got the most out of, not even consciously, but just because I've been expanded to so many new things. My mind is so open. Um, I don't see any barriers. Like I, that sounds crazy,
Mhm.
but like I really don't see, like, if you want something, like I find it very easy to try and figure out a path, because I think I've been so expanded into so many different worlds and um,
Mhm.
things, and I know not everyone's as privileged to say that they've experienced those things, but I feel like that has led me on this whole self development journey, that I now don't see any barriers in what's possible to achieve in yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it
How?
makes sense. I think, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it.
No, I was just gonna say, I think like a lot of the times, like you said, self-improvement starts off as like a subconscious thing. And I think it's more so out of a desire for change.
Yeah,
And I'm not to, yeah, not to say that like we all come from really crappy backgrounds and that we want to get out of our crappy situations. I mean, some of us have really, really bad backgrounds that we come from. Some have like, pretty standard, it's got a little good, a little bit of bad, and some is just is a really decent upbringing kind of thing. But I think we all have this desire to change and grow. And I think that is what kind of starts that self-improvement journey of like, what can I do to grow further? And I don't think we consciously do that. I mean, um, and I think that's like what it sounds like for you, right? Like you were done with high school, you weren't doing uni, you needed to create a path for yourself, you needed to make money to survive, you wanted to get into a field that you were interested in and see how far you could grow in it. And that was just out of like natural desire for change and need for growth. And
yeah,
then, right? And then sometimes we find ourselves burnt out and overwhelmed in what we've in the little empire that we've created, that we've grown into. And that's where I think sometimes we have to take a step back and develop a more conscientious approach to our self improvement. I'm not sure if that, I hope that makes sense.
yeah, 100%. I think you're right. Like, it does all come from a desire to change, and then it's about you going on that path to figure out what does that change look like. Because there's so many different routes you can take. Like, for just as another example, last year my priority was my physical health, actually, because I knew that that was going to intertwine with my mental health. I knew that that was going to support whatever development I was focusing on my mental health. So I really focused 80% of my attention last year was on me trying new activities, like trying to get to peak physical fitness, like trying different things to figure out what worked for my body and what worked for me, and getting me to that level that I wanted to be at physically. And I'd say like you can prioritize different things, whereas like as I just said, my priority throughout my 20s was my career changing and like progressing and developing. So yeah, I think it comes in ebbs and flows in your life, and it's not always like a conscious decision to focus on something. It might be because it's impacted another area of your life, but that's the route that you end up going down. Yeah, how about you? What about where do you feel like yours has kind of stemmed from?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think out of necessity, just because I was kind of on my own at 16. I was really lucky a friend and her family took me in to finish high school, but like at the end of the day, I was responsible for myself and I was responsible for like all the things that came after. Um and yeah, and I think out of necessity, I like really threw myself into school and then work and like getting into my field of work and my career and everything. And it just was that was like out of yeah, that was out of true necessity of the desire for change and improvement. I wanted to have a greater sense of control over my own life and that I could make decisions and I could have the money to show up and do what I wanted to do for me. But sorry, my dogs are barking in the background. I hope you guys can't hear them. I think the mailman's showing.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so that was out of necessity. And then I would say like when I was when I was working in inpatient psych and like life was happening, I was overwhelmed. I was moderately depressed and I later on had like I had a major depressive episode. But with that, like sorry, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The dogs were just losing their shit in the background. It was very hard to concentrate. So, in college is when I like felt this desire to want to get into self-improvement, but more physically with like my fitness and stuff. And I was so overloaded and overwhelmed with life. I couldn't keep up like a regular schedule. Like I knew I wanted to get into yoga and I would go and try, even though going to the class made me really anxious. I would go and work out in the small gym at the bottom of the hospital, like when I could, but I just couldn't quite like get there to make it like a truly consistent thing where I could see the results of that like improvement I was working on. Um, and so not that this is why I decided, but I knew I wanted to do some more traveling and decided to take a little sabbatical. I was supposed to only be gone for about a year or 2 years before going on for more schooling in the psych field. But in that time is where like I got removed from my normal environment, which came with all of those pressures and demands. And again, not everyone is privileged enough to do that. I paid off all my debt. I saved up all of my money to be able to go do this and took the leap and went. Um, and it gave me the space and time to like decompress and like do some things for myself that I like felt like I couldn't do before, or that I was really struggling to show up and do. Um, and that's when I really got into the self improvement, and I really leaned into exercise. And I will actually say the time that when I really got into exercise, I knew I had to do it in order to manage my mental health because I was coming off of an antidepressant. And so I really wanted to be prepared for what that would be like and how I was going to manage myself without that. And so I like really made that a priority, and that's like really what solidified it for me. And then from there, like with the exercises where I've leaned into other self-improvement things where I really focused on how to better process emotions and like work on some cognitive behavioral therapy and in addressing certain narratives that I had in my life, and then kind of growing from there. And like you said, other cultures, seeing how the world works outside of our own little bubble and experiencing different interactions with people and food and experiences, that was really mind opening, and it made it, I don't know, it made self-improvement a little bit easier, I think. Like it was easier to show up with that experience. But I hope all that makes
Yeah.
sense despite my dogs in the background.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think, like we said earlier, like you can't focus on all of these things at once. So it's like about prioritizing what is relevant for you at that time, at that moment in time. As you said, as you came off of medication, you knew that you had to prioritize your physical, your mental health, and you did that through your physical activity. So it's like, okay, prioritizing what you want to do. Because if you'd have tried to, like, let's say you were trying to go for a career change, moving house, physical appearance, mental health, spiritual development, all of those things at once, which, by the way, I'm guilty of doing quite often, like trying to do all of these things at once. If you'd have done that, you'd have been pretty
Uh,
overwhelmed. I can speak from experience.
yeah,
So, you have to try and like prioritize your focus and attention, even though sometimes you need all of them to work in synchronicity. But once you've
yeah,
developed, I think, a very clear sense of self in certain elements of that, I think it's way easier to kind of like navigate, and everyone's journey is going to look very different and very unique, and whatever you need, for example, in your self improvement is maybe not what I need, and that's again the point of TINAH is everyone's going to be different when they're like comes to improving their mental health as well. Like what works for me might not work for you, might not work for our first customer, whatever. Like it just might not. Like I can't tell you that it is guaranteed to work, but all you can do is try, and like it's all a bit of a trial and error process when it comes to self improvement to see like what is going to work for you.
yeah. And I think you kind of touched on a really good point here. I'm going to go back to the how you're guilty of doing them all at once, all the like all together all the time. And everyone starts at a different starting point. And I think that's kind of the tricky pitfall of self improvement and self development, because right at the end of the day, there's always stuff that we could be working on. There's always things that we could be trying to improve, that we could progress on. And although that's great to know that we have that opportunity and room for growth, it can also be really exhausting. And I think sometimes there's this pressure, this like, oh my God, I need to work on my physical health. I need to get my mental health in check. I need to, level up in my career. I need to find love and get married. There's like all these outside pressures, plus your own internal narratives that are feeding into, I should be doing all of these things in order to be living my best life. Right. And I think that's the tricky kind of part of self-improvement is recognizing, one, what is it that you specifically need in this moment? What is like your most immediate priority for you to be feeling good and to feel like you're thriving on a day by day basis rather than just surviving, and rather than like doing something just because there's outside expectations from the world, right? Like, are you dating for yourself because you are interested in finding love, or is it because there's this pressure that you have to get married and start popping out kids? Like, that's just one example, right? Or same with career, like that you have to continue to move up the career ladder, and maybe you're in a field that you discovered you don't like after working it for a year or two, but now you're just pushing because there's financial pressure, there's expectations to, right, to get those I don't know what it's called, but like, to get those, not the quota, but to get the labels of, oh, you're a manager now you're a superior, and you kind of get those gold stars as you move up. There's a lot of pressure for that. And I think that's why we see so much, and I hate to put it so bluntly, but failure when it comes to setting goals around self-improvement. We see it like every New Year's, right? New year, new me. Like, these are my goals. I'm going to work out 6 days a week. I'm going to start journaling every night. I'm going to, go on one date a week. I'm going to, double down at work, and I'm going to get that promotion, right? There's just, we put a lot of, there's a lot of societal pressure, but then we put a lot of pressure on ourselves just in and of itself. And I think that's why something like goal setting in self-improvement is such a like needed skill, and it's a skill that can be learned, but like it's really important when it comes to self-improvement of like really understanding those aspects, and then how you put it into play, into actual action for yourself, but in a way that is with grace and love, and you're focused on the journey and just enjoying that process, and not coming from a place of, right, like, no, it's the opposite of abundance, where it's a place
Lack.
of lack. Thank you. A place of lack. The coffee hasn't kicked in yet, guys. A, a place of lack, or a place of shame or insecurity. I mean, those things exist, and we can't like ignore it. But like the reason why I got exercise to stick for me is because I was doing something. My why was so deep. My why of like, I want to make sure I don't fall back into a major depressive episode, and I do know that exercise really helps me. And now that I'm going off of an antidepressant, and I'm on the other side of the world where I'm away from any support structures, it's really important that I take care of myself so that I don't fucking fall into a deep hole that I can never get out of. Like, that was, I mean, I had had major depressive episodes before, so I knew what that was and what I didn't want to go back to. And that was such a strong why for me. And I just focused on that one thing. And I started off with like really realistic expectations or steps, like little mini milestones to hit. And that's what allowed me to kind of like progress and develop more of a habit over time, which also makes sense why there's so many habit books out there that are, you know, bestsellers, that because we buy it because we want it. People want to learn how to do this, but it is definitely a skill you have to practice and learn.
Yeah, I agree. And what you say there resonates a lot, because for me, my whole mental health and that development journey is for exactly that same reason, because I never want to go back to the depressive episode that I've previously experienced. So, like, my whole why and the reason that I am so consistent now with my mental health progression and self development journey within my mental health world is because of that. Like, I think sometimes you have to get to the rock bottom of a point to actually realize that you cannot go back there, and you never want to go back there, and you need to make some changes. And I feel like I've done that with so many different things, and it's frustrating because you shouldn't have to get to a rock bottom to make the change. It should be coming more naturally, but so often many of us just wait until we're at that point where we have to make a change rather than where we want to. Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to sneeze. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's unfortunate that it is often rock bottom that like really forces us to change our behavior. I think making internal changes is really hard. Like changing behaviors that we have been ingrained with for years and years is hard. It's not an easy path to take. And I think a lot of the time what it looks like, I always refer to the pendulum, right? So we're all the way to the right, and then we try to overcompensate and we swing all the way to the left, and then we learn, like, this is where you see someone who says, yeah, I want to work out 6 days a week, this is my New Year's resolution, I want to get fit, I want to be in it. And so they swing all the way to the left, where it's like they're working out 6 7 days a week, but then they burn out because they're not listening to their body. They're not doing it in a way that's realistic within the actual flow of their life. Like sometimes you have to start small. You have to start with those baby steps. And so then they swing back in the other direction. They're like, well, I missed 2 days. I messed it up. I've already messed it up. I can't do it. And then they kind of give up. And it's that all or nothing mentality that really contributes to that swinging pendulum. And our ultimate goal is to get that pendulum to swing less and less, and where it kind of finds that center spot of where we're just kind of right, because we're human beings, we're not perfect, we're never going to be in one spot, we're never going to be perfect, but we will, that swing between all the way right and all the way left will get less and less and less, and we'll find that sweet spot of what works for us, right? Like right now I've been working a lot, and so my exercise has not been as consistent as it has been the last 6 years, which I'm not very happy with. But I at least have my nutrition is pretty solid. So like I'm not gaining weight or anything like that. I've got a pretty healthy nutritional kind of approach to all of my meals. And so that really helps when I'm not working out. But I can tell my anxiety is not the greatest right now because I'm not having that outlet. Like it's not, I don't have it there. But I am still working out a couple times a week. It's just not as consistent, but I haven't swung totally far to the left or totally far to the right, that I'm back in that place that I was 7 years ago, or, even last year when I had a major depressive episode, which was triggered by a life event. Like things happen, but in the practice of doing it all, we learn the skills that we need to continue forward with like the improved well-being that we're looking for. I hope I didn't just go on a rant there, but it's just
No, we're essentially saying we need to find a bit of a balance, right? Like
yeah.
we don't want to go too far one way where we are all in and focused 100% of our attention on one specific thing, because then we lose sight of everything else. So it's like trying to balance it with other things that are going to be a priority at the same time. Like for you, you know that you need to be exercising to maintain a level of mental clarity, but then at the same time you've got other priorities right now with business. So it's like just trying to figure out like what how can you combine those two in one. Like for example, at the moment I'm really focused also on business, and like I'm getting up every day feeling really motivated to work and like get a lot done in a day. And I think it's because I'm in an environment where I've got no distractions at the moment at all. But today, for example, I woke up and I was like, but that has led me to feel a bit more lazy when it comes to like working out. But today I wrote it down in my journal this morning. I was like, you have to do Pilates today because I can do that at home. Um, and I woke up and I was like, I really can't bother. Like, it's just not something that I want to do. I just want to like work. I've got this like thing. But then I realized, okay, I'm feeling a bit like I'm not burnt out, obviously, but I'm feeling a bit like I've done a lot. Like over the past couple of days, like I've done a lot of work. So I was like, it's time to reward myself with Pilates, for example. So I just went into like the spare room and just laid out my mat and did it for half an hour. And whilst I was doing it, as I was doing it, I was literally like, why did you not do this morning? You feel so much better, like already, like half. So I think it's like, yeah, trying to figure out like how do you combine them in a healthy way that keeps you focused on the specific goal that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. I think so. I don't know if you know this, but that's how my career in psych started. I did an internship with the psych unit where we started a goals group. That's what we did. And so I would go, oh, it was Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, every day before my classes. And I would, with the manager, and we started a goals group where we would run this goals group with patients to help them identify what were their biggest priorities and what did they need to apply right now to start working towards accomplishing that priority goal. And then that's kind of been the staple of a lot of the work I've done through my psych career and then into my coaching career and the different groups I've started when traveling with like community groups and stuff. It's all been goals focused because at the end of the day, that's how you kind of take back your power. It's deciding, this is what my priority goal is what I want to focus on and what are how can we break it down into realistic steps for us to bite off and chew and accomplish.
Yeah.
And so I think some of the key things I would say with self-improvement is, right, pick one area that you want to focus on, decide that you want to focus on it for a period of time, whether it's 6 months to a year, and then understand why it's important to you. I think before you even delve into breaking down action steps and milestones and scheduling it into your day and your time, understand deeply why it's important to you. And just saying like, well, I want to feel healthy, expand upon that. What is it that you want to feel healthy with? Like go deeper into that so that you have a really intense why that you can hold on to, because that's what's going to keep you going when the motivation is gone. Right?
Mm.
That's what's going to help you stay disciplined when the motivation is gone, because motivation comes and goes. It's fickle. And sometimes we have a bad day and we're not into it and we don't want to do it. But like there's got to be a reason why you show up anyways. And I think understanding, so, picking the one area, having a set time frame, understanding a really deep why, and then creating some sort of a plan, mapping it out on a piece of paper, right? So I want to get into exercise. Okay, well, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on yoga? Do you want to focus on weightlifting? Again, the more simple, the better, right? Instead of being like, I'm gonna do weightlifting and yoga and running and all these things. Like, I know that there, with fitness in particular, there has to be a healthy combination between, cardio and like strength building. Um, Keep it simple, right? Maybe you run twice a week and you do yoga twice a week. And what type of yoga do you want to do? Do you want to do vinyasa? Do you want to do hatha? Do you want to do yin? Like, what app do you want to use? Do all this research and like give yourself time, like a week or two to prepare and think and process and prepare your mind to meet up with your body. And then see where in your schedule you can most consistently show up. And a lot of like habit books and stuff, this is called snowballing or piggybacking. It's like, okay, I know that I brush my teeth every morning, and I know that I have usually about an hour to an hour and a half before I have to show up and do anything. I could squeeze in 15 minutes of yoga right there. And I know, so then I set for myself every morning after I brush my teeth, that's when I would do yoga. And my bare minimum to hit for the week is 2 times a week. I'm going to aim to do it looking at my schedule. I've got heavier days on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm going to choose Tuesday and Thursday to focus on this, right? It's about really being conscientious and like showing up and walking yourself through the process of what can I realistically do, and committing to what you're choosing to do in that realistic way. And then seeing, can I do this for a week? Great. I hit my bare minimum this week. Can I hit the bare minimum again next week? Great. Now maybe I move that buffer up a little bit. Instead of 2 times a week, I'm showing up 3 times a week. Can I hit that again 2 weeks in a row? Fantastic. And when you don't hit something, rather than say, I messed it up, I can't do it, look at why didn't you hit it? What was the issue? Did you sleep poorly the night before? Did you not account for meetings that you had? Or, is the time frame that you set it up for, is it just not the best time of day for you to be doing that? Would it be better for you to do it in the afternoon? There's always going to be a reason, and you can take a look at it and say, all right, how can I adjust this to work better for me? Right. And I think that's the process of like setting goals and approaching goals, especially when it comes to self improvement. And then reminding yourself at the end of the day, giving yourself praise for what you did accomplish, giving yourself grace when you didn't accomplish something, and taking note of the lesson that you learned and how maybe you could apply it better the next day. Though I know it's like a lot of information, but that's the actual sequence and flow of how we set goals we can actually meet.
Yeah, definitely. I think practicing self compassion and being kind to yourself throughout the process is a really key part there,
Oh, yeah.
because it's so easy to beat yourself up. Like if you set this goal that you're going to work out 6 days a week or whatever, whether it's realistic for you or not, and you don't do it, you don't achieve that, you're going to often feel disappointed in yourself because you haven't done something that you said you promised yourself that you're going to do. So I think having the compassion to be like, it's okay, I'll do it again tomorrow. It's not a problem. Like the good thing about life is that every day starts a new day, right? So you can literally turn the page and literally write the next day of story that you wanna achieve. So if you want to move something over to the next day, like try not to be so hard on yourself, and beat yourself up about it, because ultimately it's all about the narrative that we give ourselves, and we need to be talking nicely to ourselves in order for these things to actually manifest and happen. And I don't know, how do you feel about manifestation and like law of attraction, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I'm for it, but I talk about it in different terms. You know this, we've had conversations about this. I'm all about like, I want to know the science behind it. I want to know what like the backing behind it is. But manifestation actually, it is in terms of our brain. So there's this thing called the reticular activating system, which is our filter of what filters information into our brain, right? There's so much stimulus happening around us all day, but our brain can't process all of that. It's going to focus on what is the largest priority in our life right now. So for example, let's go back to days when cell phones weren't like, all up in our face and we were seeing everything all the time. Well, say you decided, oh, I need my TV's broken. I'm just gonna use that as an example. My TV is broken. I need to buy a new TV. All of a sudden, you're going to start seeing shops everywhere where it's like, this is a TV deal, or this is a TV repair shop, or all these specific places that you're like, did these always exist here? Like, is this, or someone starts talking about like Bronco cars and they're like, we really like Broncos. They're really cool. You should check them out. Now, all of a sudden, you start seeing Broncos everywhere, right? Like you just start seeing it's because that information has been brought to the conscious, the forefront of your mind. And now your reticular activating system is filtering that information to allow you to see those things out in your environment, opportunities to further engage with and further learn and understand. And I think that's the core basis of manifestation. Of course, I can sit here and say, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be a millionaire. And then it just poof happens. I don't agree with that. Like, you can't just sit there and journal about it all day, every day without taking any other action. That's not how life works. But if I'm sitting here thinking I'm going to be a millionaire, which by the way, I plan on being. So if I'm thinking about this, right? If I'm thinking about this and I am keeping this as a conscientious priority for me, my reticular activating system is going to start filtering things in my environment and allowing me to see opportunities or different pathways in which I could engage and maybe start working on or towards that goal. And I'll be more open to seeing those opportunities and be able to take better advantage of them. And I think that's what manifestation is, and how we basically create our own reality. And I think a big part of it is learning to pay attention to the things that you want.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think there's there's a I've spoken about this many times, and we're actually affiliated
Mhm.
with them, so they will be linked on our TINAH website when we go live. But To Be Magnetic
Perfect.
is a manifestation app that I personally use, and definitely in different terminology to how you've just explained it. Obviously, less sciencey base, but from the perspective that they give in the manifestation meditations and workshops and stuff that they have on this app, they talk about expansion. So it's like you have to see it to believe it to be true for yourself. So, for example, where you just said like your reticular, I don't even know how to say that, reticular activating system. Is that right?
Yeah, you could say RAS. Your
RAS.
RAS.
Your RAS is activated. You can start seeing opportunities for you because you've been expanded into a new world of opportunities, right? You're like, okay, I really want to change careers into from like marketing to finance, for example. If you don't know anyone in finance, you're going to think that that's like, or if you've never seen anyone develop a career in finance, you're going to see that that's really difficult for you to specifically do until you start surrounding yourself with people that maybe have developed a whole career in finance, particularly someone that maybe has done the same jump career move as you from marketing to finance. You've then broadened your horizons and seen that that's then possible for you. And then the other part is visualization, like really believing and seeing that you could potentially have that, like really like they talk a lot about vision boards. Obviously, in this app particularly, they don't talk about vision boards at all. But I know that there are a lot of manifestation gurus out there that talk a lot about vision boards to, like, again, seeing things to believe it to be true for you. Like, I think for me, I believe if you can imagine it, it can become a reality. So, you know, like, you have to be able to see it to be true before you can actually go and take the action to know the pathway to get there, basically. And then the other thing that they talk really heavily about in this particular program is manifesting through your subconscious. So if you've got a block somewhere in your belief system, so let's say I believe that I'm stupid, for example, and I will never be able to go and get a certain job. That belief is always going to hold me back until I've cleared through that belief and, like, override it in my subconscious and my conscious being in the actions that I'm taking on a day-to-day basis. So, for example, if I was just continuously making, like, stupid decisions, or calling myself stupid, or having other people doing things that other people then call me stupid, I'm going to start really believing that I'm stupid and not be able to go out and achieve the goals that I'm going putting my mind to achieving, you know. So they really focus again on, like, clearing out those beliefs to try and then uh, believe that you can achieve the things that you have set out to achieve. Obviously, then there's an action plan that you need to go down to get it. Like you say, you're not just going to sit here and be like, I'm a millionaire, boom, give me a million, like, cash flow falling from the sky, you know. That's not going to happen. Like, you still have to put an action plan in place. But if you believe that you could be a millionaire and you are expanded into that world and you can see a pathway to get there, it might not be overnight, it might be in 10, 15, 20 years time, but if you can see the pathway that you could go there, is obviously going to be new opportunities opening up along that way. You can put your mind to something and go about trying to achieve it by setting goals, and realistic ones like that as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. So you touch on like the trifecta basically. You touch on the addressing limiting beliefs, so like old narratives, which is that kind of like subconscious thing that you're talking about. Then we talk about the actual reticular activating system, so the active manifestation, which is where you're taking your dream and you're creating an actual concrete plan out of it with action steps for you to follow to some degree. And then there's the visualization, which helps you stay resilient in the face of roadblocks. And I'm not sure if you, so this is another little sciencey background for that. I got really popular when Tony Robbins was talking about this. I'm pretty sure he does like he's doing a talk and he says, okay, everybody, like put your hand in front of your face and look at your hand. Now there's been studies done where I believe it's an MRI, I could be wrong, that when you're looking at your hands, certain parts of your brain light up. Now, when you close your eyes and you imagine your hand in front of your face, the exact same parts of your brain light up, meaning that your brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. And so, if you actually put in the effort with the visualization of trying to visualize, what does life look like being a millionaire, or having a really successful business, or getting to the level in your career that you want, or any other goal that you have, you are more likely to believe it, right? Like, because now your brain sees that as something that's actually happening. When roadblocks present themselves, you'll just say, oh, this isn't a roadblock that's going to stop me. This is just something that I have to work around or work through in order to continue on to reaching the goal that I want to set. And it might, change your trajectory a little bit, and you might have to adjust those milestone action steps that you laid out. But again, that combined with setting those priorities, your reticular activating system is going to allow you to see the opportunities around that, and you're going to match that internally with your beliefs, while you're also challenging kind of those back end beliefs that were not supportive. So it's kind of like a combination of all three of those things, which really brings you stepping into that version of yourself that you want to accomplish with your goals, whatever they be, in terms of career, mental, physical, all that stuff. So I love that you touched on it. I love that you touch on the things from the non-sciencey side, and I because I'm a structure girl, and I like to understand that background, but it's also, I think there's a lot of people who are not like me and who like to see it in kind of more of that, like, I don't know, kind of not dreamy, but like that
Rainbows,
it's
bunny rabbits, like
yeah, it's easier
yeah,
to grasp, I think, sometimes outside of the science. And for me, I'm
yeah.
like, I see it, but I want to see it.
No,
Like,
I do understand that. The thing is, with me, I've got two sides to me. I've got this very logical side, and then I've got this massive dreamer side. So it's quite hard to balance sometimes. But like, I also like to understand things from a scientific perspective. Not that I fully understand it, because I was never very good at science at school, to be perfectly honest with you. But like, I don't fully understand it. But I know that there is like proven, if there's some kind of proven evidence for something to work, then I have no reason not to believe in it. And then if I can make it happen for myself, obviously, then that again expands me into something that you then rinse, repeat the process, right? As part of this manifestation app that I've been talking about, to be magnetic, I have seen so many things come through in terms of like when I wanted to improve myself, up level something, change something about my life, and I've done the work that's in this program. So many things have then come through in terms of the realities. It might not always come through in the same way that I thought. And that's something to actually really talk about here, is when you set yourself these self-improvement goals, whether it's in your mental health, physical health, whatever. One thing I think that we need to do is detach from the specific outcome, because when you put all of your attention on a specific outcome, you're going to be really let down and disappointed if you don't meet that very, very specific outcome. Whereas if you just allow yourself to work towards that goal, you could over exceed it. You might go above and beyond the goal that you've exceeded, but if you're so fixated on that specific outcome, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to over exceed it, in which case you're less likely to meet it because you're trying so hard to get there. But I think we're only ever let down by our own expectations on something. So I think it's really important also in this process. Easier said than done, by the way. Very guilty of like not doing this for myself, but like try not to set like you're setting your goals for sure, but like try not to set yourself like a specific outcome for that goal. Allow yourself to dream even bigger, or just see what naturally progresses.
no, I think that's such a great point. And to just add on to it, I think that it also the path that we take to achieve that goal often changes.
Oh
So
yeah,
like there's something that we think that we want, and we'll only know whether we truly want it or not until we start taking action steps towards it. And then sometimes we take a couple action steps and it'll be like, okay, I know I still want what this thing provides, but I don't want this specific thing. Like this isn't the right path for me. And so then we have to pivot. Or something comes up, like maybe it's not something that's viable for you to do because of an injury or a medical thing, or life happens and it throws off the trajectory. And so it's not that you can't have it, but it's going to look different in the end. It's not going to look exactly like you imagined it to. And so I think that's part of the of allowing to give yourself grace to like know that things are going to change and that you have this outcome that you are looking towards, but how you achieve that outcome might change, might be different. And
definitely.
you might go beyond the outcome more than you ever imagined, like you said, because you're not limiting yourself with certain expectations.
Absolutely. I think the key there is to try and manage your own expectations by looking at everything as a lesson, rather
Yeah,
than like the end
a
result, like
failure.
failure. Yeah. So even if things don't go as you plan them to, look at that. Right. Well, what can I take from that to do something differently next time? What can I take from that that is teaching me about something about myself or whatever? I think that that's probably the key, really, to trying to manage your own expectations throughout any self-development journey, whether you're going through something physical and you don't get the end result that you were hoping for, or you were going for a new job and you didn't get that job but you got something else, or you've just decided you want a relationship but then you start dating and actually the guys that are coming through for you aren't the right type of people. Like whatever it is that you're working to, don't be fixated on that final specific outcome, because that's where you get stuck.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The self the self-improvement journey is a wild one, but
Yeah,
unfortunately it's also a lifelong one. So I mean, learning these skills around prioritization. Like if I'm gonna be like real concrete, logical about it, and we can put it in terms of manifestation and other things, but if we're there, these are skills that we can learn to figure out what to be self-aware, to prioritize what we need, to set goals in a realistic way for us to work on them and towards them, to be able to visualize and believe in ourselves and give ourselves grace throughout that entire process are all skills that can be learned. Um, and hopefully, I mean, I know we've got some products on the website, but I think this is the basis of the self-healing journey, not just self-improvement, but self-healing in general. And so I hope that we'll continue to provide the resources that you guys need to do this, because this is what TINAH is all about. And obviously, you could tell Sophie and I are really passionate about it. I mean, we've both personally been on our own journeys. My career started focused around goals. Like I think it's just something that helps us have a little more sense of control and a little more focus in our everyday lives, and being present and being where we want to be and working on what we want so that we can feel good. Because right, we're only here
Yeah,
for a short period of time, so might as well do what we can for ourselves.
definitely. And I think some people don't even realize that this is a journey that they can go on. That's
Yeah.
what that's what mind boggles me a little bit, is that one of the reasons we're obviously creating TINAH is because we want to spread awareness of like what's actually possible to achieve for yourself. And I think a lot of people get stuck and think, well, nothing's going to change, nothing's going to get better for me, everything's just going to be like this forever. And that's not the case. And if you are wanting to go on whatever self-development journey it is out of all the ones that we've kind of spoken about today, you can change something about yourself if you really want to change something. Like you can
Yeah.
be, I know everyone's got different circumstances and different situations, but things can change over time. You don't have to be where you are today, next year, this time next month, even next week. Things can change, but it is up to you to
Hmm.
change it. No one else is going to do it for you.
Yeah. 100%. Oh, solid point. I think
Good ending.
it's
Good one to end on, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I think that's I think it's a good place to stop. Anything else that we want to add other than be gentle with yourself, guys?
No, I think just also one thing to remember is reward yourself along the way as well. Like
Oh yeah.
celebrate your achievements. If you are achieving the goals or exceeding the goals, even if you fail, celebrate the failures as well. Like learn the lessons from the failures. Don't think of them as failures. Think of them as just lessons. And then I think, yeah, just keep plowing through, and you'll get to where you want to be in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the TINAH Talks podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe. And if you love what we're talking about and are ready to start changing your life through your own healing journey, follow us on our socials at Time is Not a Healer.
The TINAH Mental Wellbeing Marketplace is now live and ready to help you take control of your mental health. Head over to timeisnothealer.com, where we'll provide you with the best toolkit for your self-healing journey.
All of the details can be found in the episode description below. Remember, you hold the power to heal. Until next time, you've got this.